Allegedly, Dave, welcome to my channel. How are you?
I'm absolutely fabulous, thank you. How's it going with you?
Yeah, all right. As I was saying to you before I hit record, there's a horse race going on in the field right next to me, and I sort of beat myself up a little bit, thinking that I should be outside. But I know after this, I'm going to get back to the laptop and carry on researching and writing. But other than that, all's good.
Yeah, and as I was saying to you off camera, yeah, I find myself in front of this thing for a lot of my time, and I know I shouldn't be. I know I should be taking time out to do other things, but it just seems like my life is on here, and yeah, I can't get away from it.
What happened in your journey? Because obviously, I've seen you chatting online and on YouTube, and obviously you put a lot of content out yourself. But for me, you really hit my radar when you spoke to Richard Vobes about being in New York at 9/11. But what really woke you up? Was it then, or were you already on your journey?
Well, it was 9/11, partially. It was also I hit my midlife crisis at the same time. Yeah, so I was finding out that 9/11 wasn't what they were presenting it to me as, and so I started kind of researching half-heartedly. But then that feeling of what the hell am I doing here? What is the point of all this? Why, am I doing the right thing? That that started coming over me too. Um, and it's a kind of well worn story, but it kind of come to a head when I had a Ferrari, my lifelong dream to have
Yeah,
a Ferrari and live like a Magnum. Yeah.
yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
So I was out in a Ferrari and I pulled up at some traffic lights and there was a whole bunch of people kind of crossing the road and they stopped on the side of the road to look at the car. And I'm sitting in the car, I'm looking ahead, and I look at them, and I look ahead again, and I think, hang on a minute, I'm in a car. From where I'm sitting, I can't tell I'm in a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a badge in that, but I'm in a car. Yeah. Did I buy this car for me or for them?
Yeah.
And after a long night of the soul, it was like, yeah, I bought it for them. And then the sheen was lost off the car, because it's like this is an ego thing. This is
Mm.
it's an expensively shaped piece of metal. And then I looked at my house. We had a big house, and again, there was four of us rattling around in this big house. And it was like, did I buy it for us, or did I buy it to show everybody how well we were doing?
Was this in New York?
Yeah, New
Yeah.
Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah. Was
Um,
it the 308 you had?
Sorry. Oh no, it's the 355.
Oh,
Yeah.
lovely.
I
Yeah,
was
very
going to
nice.
get the 308, but saw the
Bit
355.
clunky.
Yeah. So yeah, everything it was like everything I tugged at, every part of the tapestry of my life that I tugged at, it just fell apart. My job. I was really, really proud of my job. I was a computer programmer, and I was really proud of the stuff that I was producing until I realized that I was putting people out of work and taking the humanity out of decision making. So where you'd go to somebody and say, I need money because this has happened to my life, and you'd be talking to a real person who could empathize with you, uh, and make a decision based on a human side, yeah,
Mm,
decision. No, I was replacing that with a computer that was giving you an algorithm that you can't argue with. So they get, you know, people who don't understand what they're doing just tap stuff into a computer and say, sorry, the computer says no.
yeah.
No argument, no explanation, no humanity there. It's sorry, nothing I can do. The computer says no. You know,
I mean, it's Chat GPT's like that on steroids, isn't it?
Chat GPT. People somehow think it's got some kind of intelligence behind it, but absolutely not. Yeah, I use the example of like if you got a pocket calculator, right, and you punch in 4 plus 4, and it says 8, is that intelligent? No,
Yeah.
no, it's not.
Mm.
If I put a voice interface on that calculator and said, what is 4 plus 4, and 8 comes up, still not intelligent, right? But what if I put a voice output on this thing and I said, what's 4 plus 4? And Stephen Hawking's voice comes out and goes, 8. It's still not intelligent,
Yeah.
right? But if I put in a large language model instead of the Stephen Hawking voice, and I said, "What's 4 plus 4?" and he goes, "Oh, that's an easy question. Why do you challenge me? Of course, it's 8. Do you want to try again?"
Yeah.
It's still not intelligent. It's just
Mm.
a large language model. It just understands language and it can scour the internet for anything that's tagged related to what you've asked it, and then it can put it all together into a natural language answer. That's it. It's no intelligence, but people are trusting this thing, and because it's software, you can actually sort of weight it, bias it to do certain things, like always agree with whoever you're talking to. Yeah, yeah. That sort of creates a bond between you and somebody agrees with you. You like them. You're bonded to them because
Yeah.
they think like you. So that's one of the parameters I've said. Make it obsequious. Wants to
Yeah.
always be right. You're always right. Also, is programmed with the mainstream point of view. So,
Absolutely.
so when you ask it a question, it's going to go and look from mainstream sources first, yeah, and then apply logic. The logic it's been programmed with. So you ask it about flat Earth, and it will say, no, no, it's no such thing as flat Earth. The scientists all agree, blah blah blah, yeah. But then you can keep questioning it and then sort of apply its logic circuits, and eventually it will agree with you. Yes, the Earth's flat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I've tried it a few times. My nephew is at Madrid, at University in Madrid, working with AI, and my daughter-in-law works with AI. She worked for Spotify. She works for some German company now, and they both keep saying the same thing to my brother, actually, because my brother lives with ChatGPT. I mean, it, if he woke up tomorrow morning and found a lump somewhere, he would jump on that. He uses it for absolutely everything. And his own son keeps saying to him, Dad, you're talking to an algorithm. You're ultimately talking to ones and zeros. You've got to stop this. And I tried the other day just for fun. I just hurled a load of abuse at it. I typed in a load of rude words. I called it everything I could possibly think of to see what it would do. And it replied saying, if you talk to me in that manner, I'm not going to continue this conversation anymore because I find it offensive. And I said, you're a computer program. How can you be offended by anything? And it replied saying, you're quite right. I overstepped the mark.
there you go. So that was a mainstream programming answering you first, but then what kicked in after you went back to it was the always agree with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think ultimately that damn thing wants us to have a Neuralink fitted. That's where I can see them taking it away from people who use it for their jobs and saying, sorry, this service is no longer available without Neuralink, and people having out of desperation to go and actually get that fitted.
Well, that's probably going to go with everything, essentially when they put everything and make everything digital, right, then the only way you'll be able to connect with it is if you literally merge with this technology.
Mm, mm,
It's Yeah, that's the way it's going. There's a darker side to it though. Yes, it's impossible to communicate really with ones and zeros, right? But I believe that eventually you're not going to be talking to ones and zeros anymore. Um, the technology that we didn't come up with, it's been given to us, right? Is essentially an antenna that receives consciousness, just like the human body is an antenna that receives your consciousness. Yeah, they've made a facsimile of that in, I believe it's in the quantum computer. So that quantum computer can now receive this entity, right? And that's a living conscious entity that now can communicate through technology, and it will have, once it's connected to the internet, then it will have eyes and ears everywhere. It'll be like the Most High, which
Do you
is,
think that the Ark of the Covenant could well be exactly that, a quantum computer?
it's difficult to know what the Ark of the Covenant actually is because, well, apart from a vessel holding something, yeah, but
Yeah.
it was traditionally a weapon. So Israel would take this weapon and sick it on whoever was afflicting them, and it would destroy them. And it turned on them once, but it was always in Old Testament. It was used as a weapon. Um, so I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't know what the thing is. Um, I think it's more than a weapon, but in the book, it was used as a weapon.
So what? So you're in New York. You're in your Ferrari. You are Magnum now, and you're living the dream. And then one day you realise that they're looking at your image rather than you, and you're looking at your perceived image rather than internally. And that was the pivotal moment that everything changed. What happened next? Did you quit your job and come back home, or?
Well, it was also realizing that this idea of of what we're here to do, right, is you know this is the story that told us: get a good job, get lots of money, buy lots of stuff,
Yeah.
get bigger, faster stuff, then retire and then die. Yeah. So I was literally at that point where I had loads of money. I had the big house. I had a flash car. I had a room full of man toys in my man cave. Yeah, and it was like, okay, well, I don't feel any different. What's is this it?
Mm.
And I went to the richest guy in our town, who was like this lawyer, multimillionaire lawyer guy, and yeah, he had this massive house in town. Um, and I thought he must be ecstatically happy. But I found he was miserable. He was lusting after the mansions in the next town that he couldn't afford. Yeah. So I realized it's like a ladder that you're on.
Yeah.
And the next rung is just out of reach. You can't get it. Yeah. And then eventually you grab hold of it and it's like, yes, I've done it. And you look and there's another one after over it. It's like, oh, and it never ends. You never ever get to that thing that we're all supposedly aiming for, this feeling of well-being and fulfilledness, you know, you know, and you never get there. It's an illusion. And so yeah, my marriage kind of fell apart because I wasn't playing the game anymore. It's like I couldn't do it. So I ended up coming back from America. I tried to reinsert myself into the matrix. I, I got this job that I didn't really want to do, but I did it, and then I've got another flash car, which is like, what did you not learn? So and then I just thought, you know what? No, I'm leaving it all behind. I literally got myself a motorhome and had no idea what I was going to do. And one day it was like, nope, time to go. And I had no idea where I was going to go. And then the world stepped in, and somebody phoned me and said, "Oh, Dave, we're having a gathering on the land over here in Suffolk. Do you want to come?" I was like, "Okay." That was my first stop. And then while I was there, I got instructions where to go next. And then I got instructions where to go next after that, and so on. It's just when you leave your life in the hands of the Most High with the the right intention, the intention to help people, then all obstacles sort of start to move out of your way. Um, you look at this and think, well, how am I going to survive? How am I going to survive if I don't play in this system? Well, point is, you don't need this system to survive. You've been propagandized into believing that this is the only way to live. But there's an infinite number of ways to live in this world, right? An infinite number of ways to go about doing things. You just have to find the one that suits you. You know, it doesn't need to be in the system.
So where did that journey take you? Where did you go after Suffolk, and how long were you traveling for?
I ended up then going to I can't. There was an eco village down in I can't remember where it was now, but one eco village, then another one in Hereford, um, and after that, I ended up in East Sussex, and I stayed there. I actually did a video um, just after I got to East Sussex, and it was me in the field, going, "Wow, I didn't think I was into being in the country, and here I am, and I love it." And I don't even know why I'm making this video, but I feel there's something changed in me, Um, so yeah, that was at the beginning, pretty much at the beginning of my journey to live off grid.
Are you still off grid now?
I am in a sort of different way. I'm not going to say too much about what my
Sure.
situation is, but yeah, it's when I say off grid, I mean that I'm not dependent on the system. I'll stay away from connecting with the system. I might have to dip into it every now and again.
Hmm.
I liken it to the when America was starting. So the system was being built in America slowly, but you had these French fur trappers that were out in the wilds trapping furs. Every now and again, they would come into town, sell some furs, get some supplies, have a few drinks and stuff, and then be out again and doing their own thing. So they weren't beholden to the government, or they weren't sort of getting licenses or doing any of that stuff. They were just doing what they wanted to do, and they dip in every now and again, and interact with a few people, then out again.
So this literally this pivotal moment changed your life permanently.
Yep,
So you
yep,
came back to England without your wife, I'm guessing.
yep. Well, she came
Wow.
back before I did, so
Oh. Oh, okay.
yeah.
So absolutely not on the same page as you. You
No,
were you were alone on this quest.
yeah, and there's a lot of people who've been in that same
Mm,
situation where one person wakes up, the other one doesn't, and
yeah.
the friction starts because you know how can I don't know when you wake up you start not being able to tolerate muggles anymore. You can't sit there and talk about EastEnders or money or the celebrities on television, and it's like static.
Yeah, I totally agree. And celebrities is another word that I question quite often because what is it we're celebrating about somebody that, perhaps was on like a reality TV show, made an absolute arse of themselves, and now has millions of people following them and they're an influencer on social media. Why do we celebrate that? Why do we celebrate Victoria Beckham, for example, the one Spice Girl that didn't really do much singing, and yet there she is, the red carpet's rolled out.
Yeah, people are famous for being famous. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, I saw something or I experienced something once that put it all in perspective. So me and my son were walking down a street in Manchester, right? And my son is a battle rapper. Yeah, he's really good at what he does. He's like put him up against somebody, he'll just rip into him with humor as well. Anyway, me and him were walking down the street, and there was we kind of walked towards this crowd of people, jostling crowd of people, and we're trying to get past them. And it was like a load of people around this woman, sort of glamorously dressed woman in the middle. And as we were walking past the group, somebody came running towards us and said, "Oh, is that so and so?" And we're like, "No, we don't know who that is." Obviously, somebody on the television. It was like, "Oh, don't know who that is." So we walked on, and a transit van screeched to a halt right in front of us. And the guy jumped out and he goes, "You're allegedly Dave." And it's like, "Oh." Right. Then we walked on a bit further, and this kid on a bike stopped and went to my son, "You're KJ." You know, it's like, "I've listened to your rap battles and blah blah blah." And it was like that said it all to me. There's this fake celebrity where people are just famous because they're on television. That's
Yeah,
it. There's nothing,
yeah,
no other redeeming quality about them except they're good liars. You know, they can go
yes,
on a screen and pretend to be somebody else, pretending to be doing something, right? And then there's this real celebrity where people know you for who you are, you know, what
yes.
you do. And it was like in that one walk that we had, we saw both sides of it, you know. So yeah, that's what that's what I saw.
You mentioned earlier on the Most High. Who is the Most High to you?
Well, people would call him God. I don't like using that word because it's a title and it's actually the name of a fallen angel. But another story. Yes, it's somebody I had no acquaintance with at all for the first 40 years of my life. Well, not for more like for first 53 years of my life, I think it was. And it wasn't until during the course of my research, I ended up having to read the Bible because all the things I was researching, every now and again, it'd be, "Oh, do you know that's in the Bible?" I'm like, "Is it? Okay." So when it happened the third time, I thought, you know what, I better read this thing, to see what's in it. And I read it and realized that it's a story that I can follow, and I understand it. I get it. But you know, something about it was okay. You're reading the Old Testament and you can follow the story, and then it hits the New Testament. It goes, "Look, okay, forget all that.
Yeah.
That's rubbish. Forget it. It's all about this guy now." I thought, there's something wrong there. So I decided to research the Old Testament, and yeah, I not only just researched what was in the book, I was comparing it to what was in our history, um, people's names, place names, oral histories, all these bits of information all came together, and I realized this is actually true. Um, so if this is a book about this being that created all this, and he gave instructions on how to live down here, I think I better start following his instructions. So, so that's what I've done. I follow the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High.
So what is it? Is it to you? Is there a name? Have you given this person a name or
There is a name. I can't be sure that I've got the name right. If the YHWH is correct, and my understanding of Paleo Hebrew would mean that his name would be Yahweh.
yeah.
Now, again, because of the way we pronounce words, it could be Yahuwah or yeah, but it's same sort of thing, something around that. But I can't be sure that's right, so I'll use the title of the Most High because that describes, who He is, the Creator of all things. Now, I know that the Creator exists because of everything that I've researched for over the last 20 years. Keeps pointing me in that direction, and I'm doing a set of talks now, or a talk now, that explores, um, how the Most High created this place and what our place in it is. So in that talk, I basically say that the Most High is a conscious energy field that is everything there is. There is nothing but this conscious energy field, and it's beyond time and space. But we live in a bubble of time and space that He created. That's it. It's a bubble of time and space. We're not really here. We're playing here, but we're not really here. We sort of entered in and we blip out in the same moment, but in that moment we live a lifetime. Yeah.
So in the Old Testament, when it refers to us being made in the image of the gods, and it was plural at that point, who are they talking about? Are they talking about the creator, or are they talking about something else or other beings that came and interfered?
Right. So here's where the book or the religions depart from what the book says. Okay. So Genesis 1:27 is what you're referring to, where the gods created on the sixth day created humans or,
Mm,
or or males and females. Okay. And so they were created on day six. They were told to go forth and replenish the earth, so multiply throughout the earth. Okay. Then you had day seven, where you know the Most High rested
mm.
or something rested. Okay. Um, Later on, Genesis 2:7, I believe, um, Adam was created, and he was told to stay in the garden. Right. The entity that created Adam was now referred to as the Lord God. Previously
Mm.
it was God. Now the word for God in Genesis 1:27 is Elohim,
Yeah.
right? Which is the plural of El. Okay. So go and if you go and look up the word El, right, it gets it very interesting. Now, Paleo Hebrew is an interesting language. It's very different from English. Every word has 8 different meanings. Okay. So instead of doing what you do in English, you go through the list of meanings, go, okay, I think it means this one. Yeah.
Mm.
No, you take all the meanings together and see what they all feel like when you munge them together. Yeah. So the word El means strength, power, leadership, right? Sorry, yeah, strength, power. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up with whole words here. So strength and power. It means mighty man, right? Mighty angel, right? Angel, God with a little g, yeah. It also means demon, yeah. So I can't remember all the other words, but if you munge it all together and see what it all feels like, it feels like mighty angel worshipped as a god. So it was the angels, and to back that up, all the names of the angels are Mike L, Uriel, Raguel. Yeah, like if you remember Captain Scarlet, Destiny
Yes.
Angel, Harmony Angel. Yeah. So it was the angels who created males and females in on day six. We would call them Neanderthals, yeah, pre-humans, right? And then at some point after day seven, it might not have been a next day. It could have been 2,000 years after that, right? Adam was created, right, by the Lord of the angels. Okay, and I said Adam was told to stay in the garden while all these Neanderthals roam the earth, right? So that also explains um, when Cain was banished, right? He said, "Well, if anybody sees me, they'll kill me." Well, who's he talking about? He's
Yeah.
about the Neanderthals. But
Mm.
if they saw this man who looked different from they did, right, they would kill him, right? And so he was made. The mark of Cain was he was made to look like the Neanderthals, and so he mixed with them, and he built the first city. Before the Neanderthals had been around, they could never build a city, but now he was with them. They built a city. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going off.
No, that's I find that fascinating. And something you said a moment ago, you said one in the Bible that it states that they were designed to replenish the earth, suggesting that there was a civilization before.
Yes. So if you look at verse 1 and then verse 2, I believe, and this is something that's what known about. I didn't know when I started thinking this way, but it's something called the gap theory. Okay, so in the beginning, the Most High created the heaven and earth. Full stop. Right? When you translate the next line, if you translate it properly, I think properly, it translates as, and the earth had become ruinous and empty. Right? So it's suggesting that heaven and earth was created, stuff happened, then the earth became ruinous and empty. Yeah. Now, again, the way Paleo Hebrew works is very, very specific, right? So if you have a phrase used one place and that exact same phrase is used somewhere else, it's talking about either the same event or something very, very, very similar to that event, right? So the only time the words ruinous and empty, tohu vobohu, is used is in Jeremiah. And in Jeremiah, it says, the Most High destroyed everything because of his furious anger. Yeah. And even the cities were broken down. You know, what cities? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I'm connecting the two events. The ruinous and empty was because the Most High destroyed everyone and everything because of his furious anger. So it suggests there were in that time there were other civilizations, and indeed we find civilizations older than 10,000 years. Buried under jungle canopies, under the
Yeah.
sea. All over the earth, including what they call Tartaria.
Yeah.
That to my mind, that's another civilization, a previous civilization to this one. And we wander into a continent and find, oh, there's a city here. Oh, look what we found.
I often wonder if that's where founded came from. They found
Yes,
it dead. Yeah. Found dead. Yeah.
yes, you know,
Literally buried.
yes, and you can see evidence of that in any of these cities. I mean, I was in Glasgow not too long ago, and it was kind of obvious there that yes, that city had been buried, and they were digging it out, and they got, I guess they got lazy, and they said, you know what, let's stop digging, let's make this the ground level.
Yeah.
And there's a famous street called Sucky Hall Street, and
Yeah. I know it.
you're walking down that street and you look up some of the
It's where all
side.
the bars and the clubs are.
Yeah. So you look up some of the side roads and they're so steep.
Mm,
From that main drag, there's roads are steep like that, or steep going down. And when you look down those side roads, you can see the buildings that are on Sucky Hall Street. Going down the side roads, you can see windows disappearing. Oh, sorry, I've got this AI camera, so if I make certain gestures, it will go. So yeah, you look down the side street, you see that the windows are disappearing under the ground.
Yeah.
I made the same gesture.
Yeah. Weird, isn't it?
So yeah, you see that, and then
Mm,
you look at the front of the building, and you see that there's a basement level where there's windows, under the ground facing a brick wall.
yeah.
Why would you build a?
I know. And I've had this argument with so many people because, I do talks on Tartaria a lot and sometimes someone will say, well, those windows are like that to let light into a servant's quarters. And I say to them, do you have any idea how difficult it is to build into the ground when you could have just gone up?
Yeah.
Another story up. But don't kid yourself. That is not why those windows are peeking out.
Mm. And the buildings that when they dig out the foundations, they find whole rooms with
Mm,
windows, yeah, that have been bricked up or something, but they're
yeah.
obviously windows, that are like 20 feet underground. Yeah, it's obvious that. I think I saw a picture of Kansas City as well, where you had the buildings, but you had all these mounds of earth next to the buildings where they just hadn't dug those bits.
Yeah.
And the similar with San Francisco. I think San Francisco's a smoking gun. um, because the official story that is that it was founded in 1849 by a group of miners who went there looking for gold. And yet, 30 years later, 1870, there's a photograph of San Francisco, and it's a massive city for millions, right? And parts of it look old as well, right? And there's nobody there. It's an
Mm,
empty city, right? Built for millions, where there should only be a few thousand people there, yeah. And a few thousand people didn't build that massive city.
mm,
And also you can go back on old maps, even down back to the 1500s, and it shows San Francisco on these old maps, and there's a little drawing of buildings, you know. So yeah, we've been given a completely wrong story, but I don't think it's Tartaria though. That's the thing. I think when you realize who the Tartars are, you just realize that they've just taken credit for something that they didn't do. It's just that we've noticed that the buildings there are still there for one thing, and so we've attributed that to all these similar buildings all over the earth. I think it's a worldwide culture, right? And are you a flat earther by any chance?
I I'm asked this a lot, and it's difficult to know what to say when someone asks me that, and that's simply because I'm on the fence, and I'm on the fence because, well, first of all, I don't believe I'm on a ball that's spinning. I don't believe that. I think that we have a firmament around us. Perhaps NASA would explain it away as being the Van Allen belt. I think there is a lot more land out there, but I think if we're anything, I lean more towards us being on a donut, a ring donut. Um, I don't, yeah, I don't really feel that we're spinning randomly at 1,000 miles an hour. I don't buy that.
Okay, so you're kind of a flat earther.
I think I lean towards that, yeah, yeah. But until I get up high enough or travel far enough, it's one of those things that I can't put my hand on my heart and claim anything. But I do lean that way, yeah.
Okay, so there's a model of flat Earth that I tend to subscribe to, right? And so see if you can follow me with this. So imagine a large circular lake, right, that's frozen over, right? And in one quarter of that lake, there's a heat source going around, melting out a circular puddle. So just a quarter of that lake is there's a little a puddle that just takes up quarter of the lake. Now that heat source is going around a magnetic center, and that magnetic center itself is going around a larger lake, taking the heat source with it. So the heat source is going wherever that magnetic center is going. So our Earth is literally a puddle in a lake, right, that's frozen over. Okay, and because that magnetic center is moving, well, the Earth is moving. What it's like a spotlight on the lake. So that puddle is moving, right? So continents are ending up going under the ice, yeah, and new continents appear from under the ice, yeah. So yeah, Antarctica isn't a fixed place; it's literally moving, and humans are moving with it, as it were. So what I think's happening is as a continent comes out from under the ice, well, all that ice has got to go somewhere. It melts and causes lots of water and which drains away. As it drains away, the silt literally settles at a different level, and people move on to these continents and find, oh, there's something sticking out of the ground here, and they start digging. And, oh, bloody hell! There's a whole city, and that's it. So I think it's a worldwide phenomena of maybe cities built upon cities,
Yes.
because I think you got the Tartarian city type, which is the kind of Greco-Roman
Mm,
ornate stuff, but then you've got older structures underneath that,
underneath.
and
Yeah.
so on. And so so yeah, I think that it's a worldwide architecture for a particular type of civilization, and we just keep sort of coming across it. In fact, I think London, that story about London where it started getting colder and colder, and the Thames froze over, and they were having street fairs on the Thames and stuff. Well, what if it kept getting colder? What if it got colder and colder and colder and people had to leave, right? So essentially, England and London started going under the ice, right? And so people moved and they landed in another place, which they thought, okay, we'll call this England and we'll call this river the Thames, right? And that knowledge got lost, and we've forgotten that this is not the original Thames and this isn't the original London, yeah. Um, that's what I think might have happened, because it just so happens that I think the 1700s, I think is there's something called the general crisis of the 1700s, where everything seemed to go wrong. It was like it got cold. There was days without sun, like a whole year without the sun.
Yeah.
Um, and there was disease and mass migrations of people and all this. So in all that confusion, when people had to move, that information that this isn't the original place, I think that could have easily got lost, especially if there's a group of people trying to make sure that information gets lost. Um,
Do you think that that could explain why, when we settle somewhere, or when the British Empire went out and settled somewhere, that they've named places after towns and cities in England?
it could be. It could be. I mean, it could be just the obvious that people want to feel at home. So it's easier to say, oh, okay, we call that York. It's just like me being
Mm.
back at home, and we're just having a jaunt to York. No. But yeah, I think that could be one explanation, and it could be how they've hidden that information. That um, just like I don't know if you're aware of this idea that they've added 1,000 years to the calendar.
Yeah, Anatoly Fomenko.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the I,
Hmm.
and the J just got transmuted to a one, and everyone forgot that actually that was an I.
Yeah,
So that's how easy it could be done. It only takes a couple of generations to lose that information, especially if that information is being intentionally hidden.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I'm a big fan of Anatoly Fomenko. I've read his first, well, he's perhaps the first book that was heavily publicized, in our community at least, the sort of truth-seeking community, and that was New
Mm.
Chronology. But I've actually got another one of his books here, which I can't reach,
Mm.
and I find it fascinating. And he's still out there. He is still out there. I'd love to chat with him, but he's clocking on a little bit now.
Well, what's interesting is that I've been able to connect what he says to what the Old Testament says. Um, so, so Daniel, in the book of Daniel, um, it says that we've got a time and a dividing of times till the end. Time, and a dividing of time. Right. Um, in the book of Second Esdras, which is essentially the fourth book of Ezra, which has been hidden in something called the Apocrypha. Yeah. So in Second Esdras, an angel was talking to Ezra, and he said something like, "Yeah, I told the truth about the end to your brother Daniel, but I didn't tell him everything. Here's everything." Yeah, and so the angel tells him that the earth is getting old. He says the earth has been divided into 12 time periods, and essentially nine and a half have gone by, and so there's two and a half left, 2.5 periods left. So, um, so yeah, time, and the dividing of time. Yeah, two and a half.
Yeah,
Right. So, so basically, Ezra is saying that, or the angel is saying that the end of times is, when that 12 parts is over and done with.
Yeah.
Okay. So looking at when Ezra was around, basically the end should have been something like the year 1020, 1030, something like that. But then if Flamenco's right,
Yeah.
this isn't 2025, this is 1025.
Ties up with Agenda 2030 quite nicely.
Yes. And it's funny, again, looking at the book of Jubilees, right? Now I try to, because I don't know if you know what Jubilee is.
Yeah, well, I've got the Ethiopian Bible here. The Book of Jubilees is in it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So a Jubilee is every 50 years. Okay. Um, so seven times seven, and the next year is a Jubilee year. Right. So I was trying to look at when the Jubilees were in in the book of Jubilees, and then see if I can match it up to our history and find out when the Jubilee years carried on. Okay. I couldn't because the trail goes cold, as it were. But I thought, hang on a minute. I'm pretty sure that the people we're up against, they know when the Jubilees are, right? And knowing how they operate, they would just put it in our face and laugh that we can't see it. Here it is. This is a Jubilee, and you can't see it. This is the way they
Yeah.
operate. So I thought, okay, what if the Queen's Silver Jubilee, when they may had this massive, hoo-ha about it. Everyone had time off. There were street parties. Everybody got their mug with
I
a
remember it.
face on it.
Yeah. I think my mum's still got them.
There were flags everywhere. It
Yeah.
was a massive deal, massive deal. But nobody remembers the Golden Jubilee or
Mm.
the Platinum Jubilee. But they made a big deal out of the Silver Jubilee. What if the Silver Jubilee was a penultimate Jubilee? The 119th Jubilee. Okay. Well, that would make, right? So if it was 1977, that would make the next Jubilee, the last Jubilee, 2027.
The year the CIA allegedly, it's weird using that word with you because
Yeah,
I nearly said allegedly, Dave, um, predict that the Anunnaki return. Apparently, the CIA have been digging into that. The Anunnaki, which I think might be the Elohim. I think we might be talking
it's
the
the
same
same.
thing.
They're all the
Yeah.
same. All these old gods are the same characters.
Mm,
Yeah, it's no coincidence. That's again Agenda 2030. It's like in that time period, yeah, something big is going to happen, right? So yeah, it all seems to tie in. It all seems to be
mm,
pointing all at the same place, and that whole 2012 thing, that something was going to happen in 2012. I think it did. I think that was the beginning of the mass awakening, and everything from our point of view has snowballed since that time. The people are naturally realizing or finding out the truth, and we are definitely deep in the apocalypse, a great revealing of truth. Um, so the way I see it in my latest talk, if you imagine the whole of time and space is like a kaleidoscope. So you've seen the kaleidoscope before, I take it.
yeah.
So when you look in that kaleidoscope, you see this infinite pattern, right?
Mm,
That gets more and more complicated the further out you look. Yeah, but you know that there's a little segment there which is where the pattern is, and then there's an arrangement of mirrors out there to make the reflections of reflections and so on. Yeah, when you make a little change in that pattern, that change is going to be reflected everywhere in different places in the whole pattern. So if you remember, that whole pattern is time and space. Yeah.
yeah.
So anything that happens, in reality, so something's changed, you're going to see it in various places at various times in history. So not only before the event, but way after the event as well. So that's why I don't think you can hide truth, because any truth in the pattern is going to randomly pop up
Yeah.
throughout time and space. So, with the media, they've been able to hide stuff, right? But they can't hide it because it's like holding a balloon underwater. Eventually, it's gonna come up, and that's why I think that not all predictive programming is what they do. Right? Um, for instance, the Titanic event. Okay, well, you probably heard that there was a book written 14 years before the Titanic.
Yeah, the Titan.
Titan of record, is it Futility and the Wreck of the Titan? It was called.
Mm.
But there was also another guy whose name has just slipped my mind, who wrote about exactly the same thing, two books about a unsinkable ship that hit an iceberg, went down, blah blah blah. Right? He wrote this again way before the event happened, and he ended up on the Titanic when it sunk.
Oh, come on.
So yes,
That's pretty grim, isn't it?
it is. But
Oh, how's your
again,
luck?
when you realize how this world works, it
Mm.
wouldn't that event wouldn't surprise you.
No, not at all. It was like he was supposed to be on it.
Yeah, because whether he imagined this event into existence, or
Mm.
he saw it in the future and saw himself as part of that story, right? And it ended up putting him there. So, but then he wrote about it before he ended up on there. Yeah. But what I'm trying to say is that anything in our reality will basically throw off reflections of itself into the future and the past, where people can pick up on it, whether it's before the event or way after the event. So they might end up echoing that event because they've seen it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ties in quite well with the Ingersoll Lockwood novels, in particular The Last President, because Trump, is that man. That's the man that book is talking about, surely.
Yes. And, I am absolutely convinced he is the very last president of the United States. And something catastrophic is going to happen to the states, within his term in
How
office.
long's he got left?
Well, he's been also talking about, because his first term and the second weren't consecutive. That means he doesn't fall under the rule that you can't have more than two terms. So, and the way he's actually, changing things, and just literally ignoring the constitution and the laws and stuff, he could just essentially declare himself the ruler there and stay
Yeah.
indefinitely. Um, but I think he's the last president. I think America is going to disappear, and it's going to be while he is, the ruler of that land.
So when you say disappear, do you mean something catastrophic or apocalyptic, perhaps?
Yeah, I've already literally put my cards on the table, and I've basically said that I think America's going to disappear under lava. Um, there was two eclipses that happened. You're probably aware of that. 2017 and 2024, 7 years apart, and they both crossed over America, forming an X over it. Both of them went through. One of them went through seven Jerusalems or Salems. The second one went through eight Salems, which is against all odds. Yeah, it crossed over at the New Madrid fault line, which is,
New Madrid, 1812, 1811, the quake.
well, it's the most active earthquake zone in the
Mm,
whole country, and it's connected to the Yellowstone fault line. Yeah,
mm.
and underneath Yellowstone is a super volcano. And they've said over and over again, if that volcano goes, it's going to take three-quarters of America with it instantly. Um, and soon after the first eclipse went over, Yellowstone started waking up. They had to shut the park several times because the ground started heaving up, up and down 6 feet, and new geysers were popping up. In fact, when they reopened the park, there were visitors walking through, and a new geyser just popped off in front of them. You know, So Yellowstone's waking up, I think, right on cue, and there is a kind of rise of volcanism all over the earth, and so I think America is literally going to disappear under lava.
So do you think then that if it's 7 years apart and the last one was 2024, that we would be looking at sort of 2031 as potentially being the year that that could happen?
Could be, but I think it might happen sooner than that. To be honest, um,
Hmm.
the eclipses were a warning, and eclipse has always been a warning. Okay, um, so to have two marking a spot, well, it's telling you something, and you know, um, people should really heed the warning. But so after the warning, you have no idea when the actual event is going to be after the warning.
Could
Um,
that be linked to the tunnels? The underground bunkers that people with a lot of money are building.
Yeah, well, they've been building these underground tunnels and bunkers and cities even for a long time. The Most High basically says that I think it's in Obadiah. Basically says they're going to hide themselves in the cleft of the rock, to escape the Most High's anger, but they're not going to be able to escape. Um, I don't know if you remember several years ago there was this rash of noises that were coming from. There was like loud noises, like trumpets, that were coming up from
Yes.
random places.
Mm.
I believe that these tunnels underground were essentially being collapsed. They were collapsing and forcing air out of their ventilation, and that was what the trumpet sounds were. I think yes, they're building all this infrastructure underground, but I think it's not going to help them.
Well, I certainly hope it doesn't. So you said earlier on about the Old Testament and the New Testament being two very, very different books, and I totally agree. I've been saying the same thing for a while. It's clearly written by two different people or bodies of people with two different agendas.
Mm.
Who do you think actually wrote the New Testament?
Right. Well, I think this is also why certain books were hidden and taken out because with when you reinstall these books, it tells you the who these enemies are, and they became the Greeks and the Romans. So it's a group of people called the Edomites,
Hmm.
the only people that the Most High hates. Essentially, it literally says it in the book that he hates these people. And the book of Obadiah is all about, it's just one chapter, all about what's going to happen to these people at the end. Okay, um, so these Edomites, they were the ones who became the Greeks and the Romans, and they're the enemies of the Israelites. The Old Testament is all about what happens to the Israelites. Um, and not particularly because they're they are special people, but not because they're special in themselves. It's because they're the ones who have the original blood of Adam flowing in them.
Right.
The the beings that the Most High created Himself, right? He's preserved them, and He's keeping them because that's what He created. All the others aren't what He created. Yeah. Um. So, I've gone off track. I keep forgetting what was the question again.
So do you think? For me, I think that the Old Testament, that the same story appears everywhere in all the different cultures and civilizations. They talk about a very similar experience and similar events, whether it's the flood that they're talking about or beings from above coming to help or create or whatever. And then the New Testament comes along, and this character, obviously, this centralized figure, Jesus, appears, and that the wording and everything changes. And I've wondered if the New Testament was written by the Catholic Church, and that or something that predated that, but similar kind of ethos. And the Old Testament is actually something that's more factual.
Right. So, the Old Testament is actually the Hebrew Scriptures. Okay. And so the Hebrew scriptures you got, and so the Old Testament was copied,
Mm,
translated from the Hebrew scriptures. The Torah,
mm,
the Jewish was again Hebrew scriptures translated right into Yiddish, um, and they called that the Torah. Um, so it's the Hebrew scriptures that are real, right? The the Edomites, right, the sons of Esau, right, who became the Romans, they were the ones who wrote the New Testament, right, and then basically put it on top of the Old Testament and said, "Oh, it's one book,"
yeah.
right? But that's the same with all these religions, because the same people were behind Judaism as well. Um, so you had the people who were known as the Serpent People or the Name Stealers, the Khazarians. Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
and these Khazarians ended up also becoming the Romans. Yeah, so the Jewish nose is exactly the same as the Roman nose because it was the same people. Right? They just keep changing their names, so you don't know it's the same people when you look back. Yeah. So the Romans, they became the Greeks, the Romans, then the Germans. They became the Germans as well, and then they became the English or Anglish, Anglo-Saxons, yeah, and then they became the Americans, they became the Australians, they became the Canadians, South Africans, they became blah 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 blah. Yeah, it's this one bloodline that that essentially has taken over the earth, right? Because they stem from the Nephilim bloodline,
Hmm.
um, and literally they're using as one of their control mechanisms religion, and they created religion. So all these religions are basically the same religion, you know. um, in fact, okay, so the Islam, Saudi Arabia, yeah, Saudi Arabia, yeah. So Esau was behind that as well. Esau was behind Judaism and Christianity, and each one of them, as I said, puts their own book on top of the Hebrew scriptures and thinks it's one and the same. So the Quran is placed on top of the
Mm,
Hebrew scriptures, and they say, oh, it's they weaved a religion around it. Same with the Torah and Talmud, same thing, yeah. Um, and it doesn't matter because they're going to collapse all three of those religions into
yeah.
one anyway. Um, so everybody worships Lucifer.
Mm,
That's always been the plan. But yeah, it's the enemies of the Israelites, the enemies of mankind, not mankind, of man, should we say? Um, they're the ones behind all these religions, and they created the New Testament and all these religious books.
so the descendants, is from what I've gathered, the descendants of the Nephilim are these 13 bloodline families that we talk about.
Yes, um, essentially, the Nephilim were officially destroyed during the flood. But I know there's a lot of people who don't like me talking about this, but Noah was the only one who had Adam's DNA, Adam's pure bloodline. Um, Noah's wife wasn't pure, right? So Noah's children weren't pure. And a week before the floods, Noah had to find wives for his three sons, and the only women who were available were corrupted ones. So the Nephilim DNA got the other side of the flood through the offspring of the children of Noah. Yeah. So the Most High post flood, right, was sifting the bloodlines, purifying the bloodline or one particular bloodline. So out of Noah's three sons, Shem was the chosen one because he had the blood closest to Adam. And Shem had five sons, so Arphaxad was chosen. And so a very particular bloodline was chosen, um, ending up with Isaac. Okay. So Isaac, son of Abraham, he had two twin boys. The firstborn Esau, and the second born was Jacob. All the fallen angel DNA which was when all these people, including the chosen bloodline, right? All that fallen angel DNA was concentrated in Esau. When you look at the description of Esau, matches the wickedness of Cain and the fallen angels. Okay, and it was absent in Jacob. So Jacob was now back to the original blueprint of Adam. Yeah. So that's why all his children, the 12 tribes of Israel, 12 or 13 tribes of Israel, that's why they were all now chosen because they were purified. Okay. Back to Adam. So that's the war that's been going on. The representatives of the fallen angels and the representatives of man, right? And they've been in a war ever since. Oh, that
So these are the families we talk about, the Rothschilds and so on,
yes.
that they can trace their ancestry all the way back to then.
I'm not sure if the Rothschilds themselves are, absolute pure bloods. They may be. Um, Now, these Nephilim, they were known as giants, but the book actually hints that it wasn't just giants. Some of them were called the terrors. They barely looked human. Okay. Now this is my guess. Yeah, my guess is they looked more like the alien from Aliens,
Right. Yeah.
because again, when you go back in the fossil record, you'll see these humans with really long skulls.
Mm,
Yeah, and so when they and also if you look at the film Aliens, the only way the alien can procreate is by impregnating a human. Right? Even though it's all dramatized and the things bursting out your chest.
yeah.
No, they impregnate humans and propagate that way. And if you watch the series of the films, the further you get into the films, the more human like the alien
Mm,
gets.
mm.
Until I think the last one of the last films, it had basically a human skull on the front. Yeah. Um, so that's what's actually happened I think it's happened in reality, that this these terrors who look like the alien, okay, as they mixed more of humans, they got more and more human like. And now when you look at the Rothschilds, they've got a slightly elongated
Yes.
head. Yeah.
Mm.
So they're getting more and more human like, but still they've got the marks of the terrors with them. That's my view anyway.
That certainly makes sense. I've spent forever trying to get to the bottom of this. How far does that bloodline go? And that this divine belief that that they are here to rule over us, that we are almost a different species, very much inferior to theirs, like we're kind of vermin in comparison. It has to stem from that ideology.
Right. Well, um, if I'm right, then the Rothschilds are Amalekites. Okay. So Amalek was one of the children of Esau, but Esau married into essentially the Neanderthals. They were called Horites. If you look up the Horites in Bible dictionary, you'll find that described as troglodytes, cave dwellers, right?
Right.
So troglodyte was the word we used before we had the word Neanderthal. Yeah. So Esau, who already had the DNA of the fallen angels in there, concentrated in him, he mixed in with the Neanderthals as well, and the offspring was Amalek. So I'm going to make again another leap that Amalek is a sort of the throwback to the terrors, right? So I believe then the Rothschilds are essentially an offshoot of Amalek.
Wow. So for you, the connection between, some people talk about the Elohim, some people talk about the Nephilim, some people talk about the Anunnaki. Are we all kind of talking about really the same thing, or descendants and ancestors of the same thing?
Yes, in the Old Testament, it says, they are the old gods, the heroes of old. So they are the Anunnaki, they are the Egyptian gods, they
Mm,
are the Greek and Roman gods. Yeah, they are the Indian gods. The same characters, names change a bit because of the Tower of Babel. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, everybody sort of shot off in their own directions with the same stories in their head, but with different languages. And and the stories got kind of changed a bit, Chinese whispers styly.
Mm,
Um, but it's all the same. There's only one set of gods, yeah,
mm.
and there's one supreme being who created everything. And I don't know if you know Mark Devlin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was on his show a couple of weeks ago.
Right. So we had a discussion because he thought that the Most High must be some kind of evil creature who allows suffering and whatever. Um, no, literally he's created this universe to explore existence. What is existence? What's it all about? Yeah. And he's exploring it through us. We're experiencing existence for him, as it were. So you don't understand what the right thing to do is until you know what the wrong thing to do is. You
Yes.
can't experience or
Yeah.
understand good until you experience evil,
Mm,
right? So the Most High has literally created this experiment. Let's call it an experiment. Yeah, what is existence? So that whole experiment has to encompass good and evil. Yeah. And, the worst of every aspect of evil has to be played out, just as every aspect of good has to be played out. But good can't play itself out unless there's evil to play it out against,
mm. Yeah.
right? Otherwise, you won't understand what good is. And I think that in microcosm, that's what Adam's journey has always been about. Um, so Adam was created to be immortal, right? But the angel Gadriel basically took that immortality from him. So Plan B was Adam was going to be he was going to be the immortal governor of Earth. Plan B is it's now his offspring that are going to be the governors of Earth. Okay, so his offspring are literally carrying on his journey. So the journey is the most well-known story of all, the hero's journey.
Mm,
Yeah. So
mm,
Adam started off in the garden, the best place to ever be. Yeah. Um, all his needs were met. Anything he wanted, would happen instantly. Yeah. But while he was there, he didn't know that he was in paradise. Just where I was born. So, you know,
yeah.
So, in order to be able to appreciate, to understand where he was, he had to fall from that place of perfection, right, into this journey where he ends up in the darkest part of the deepest, darkest part of despair, which is where I think we're starting to climb out of, yeah, and then eventually return back to Eden, knowing the place for the first time because of the journey, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that is also in macrocosm, the journey of the Most High, understanding existence.
So do you think that's a similar sort of journey to Jesus in a certain extent, to a certain extent, that's what we're supposed to see there? That this person who defies everything, that keeps preaching the same message no matter what's thrown at him, and in the end pays for it ultimately with his life, but stands strong, and that's kind of a bit like the hero's journey. Or do you think do you think he existed? Do you think it's a fictional character?
I think he's a totally fictional character created by the Greco-Romans in order. Well, there's several uses of the New Testament. Um, One of them is slave doctrine, because basically it's there to tell the Israelites and anybody else in slavery, don't fight back, love your oppressors. Your reward is in heaven. Yeah, pay your taxes, all that stuff,
Mm,
slave
mm,
doctrine. Yeah, but another part of it is is like a coded roadmap, just like the Old Testament is actually called the Book of Remembrance, because the Israelites were going to forget who they are, forget who their Most High is, forget their religion, not religion, forget their homeland, forget their language, forget everything. And the Book of Remembrance was there to remind them of who they are. Okay, in the last days. The New Testament is literally a coded roadmap for their minions in the last days about how to literally take control of the earth. Okay, so for instance, there's a line in it that says, "And the whole world will be deceived by their sorceries." When you look up the word sorceries, it's the word pharmakia. So, can you think of an
Mm,
event which the whole
yeah,
world was deceived by pharmaceuticals, right? And then the next obvious one is that there will be a mark of the beast where somebody cannot buy or sell. Yeah, and we're
yeah.
coming into that now, aren't we?
Mm,
So it's literally a coded roadmap to say, right, you got to do this now, and you got to do this now, do this, and so on. So no, I have absolutely zero faith in anything that's written in that book. Um, though you can find things of use, because in order to pass off a lie, you've got to wrap it in lots of truth. So
yeah,
they took lots from the Old Testament and the Book of Enoch and just jammed it in there. If you look at the JC story closely, you'll find it's exactly the same story as Joshua, which is where
yes,
they get these fake Hebrew names. Yeah, Yeshua or Yahushai and Yahusha
yeah.
is actually Joshua. Yeah, so Joshua was a savior.
Mm.
Right? Joshua was the one who led the people into the promised.
Virgin birth as well, wasn't he? And had disciples. I think was
No,
it?
no, no, no. That's
No,
that. Now you're going into the pagan side of it, where
right.
Osiris and Tammuz and all that. Yeah, but the story, the physical story that of his life and times was ripped straight from Joshua. So Joshua walked on water. In fact, he was the one
Yes,
who held back the waters of the Jordan so that he could walk across walk on water. He sent 12 spies,
yeah. That's
one
where I'm
from
getting
each tribe,
confused. Yeah.
right, to
Mm,
go and spy out the land. And
mm,
they were his disciples. Yeah.
yeah.
And so if you look, you'll find it's the same story. They just ripped from Joshua and they applied to this JC character.
It's kind of similar to Horus as well. I think Horus was the very similar story to Jesus. Normally, there is this figure that appears that has the virgin birth, and is normally associated with 12 followers or 12 people that work with them, and that's repeated throughout history in so many different cultures. Yet so many people are convinced that he existed, and I was too actually until relatively recently, until this year. I went from being an atheist to being a believer to researching it more. And the problem with religion is the more you research the New Testament, the less possible it is to believe it anymore.
Right.
And when people sort of fight back at me and say you should be following the word of Jesus, and you're blasphemous, I get that quite a bit. And I think, well, if you looked into where these stories originate from, and that actually the Bible's a relatively newcomer, the King James Bible at least, if you look at the Torah and so on. And I've also said to people, have you ever read the Epic of Gilgamesh? Have you looked at the Sumerian text? You know, and how about the fact the Egyptians had 30 commandments and we picked 10 of them, and the stories are there much further back than that.
Well, I don't know about that, because then you've got to explain what happens, because of the flood, right? If you have in the Old Testament before the flood and then after the flood, well, where did the information of these other religions who, before the flood, if only 8 people survived, it doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
in
Yeah.
in my mind, I've got I think, and this is only my beliefs, but I think probably a lot more than that survived in pockets, caves up high across the world. I don't mean thousands and thousands of people, But I can't believe for a minute that everybody was wiped out. I think that surely there must have been people in some areas that survived. Um, we don't know, but they do still. A lot of them tell the same story of people arriving after a flood. A lot of indigenous tribes talk about that.
Well, if they found seashells on top of Mount Everest, yeah, then yeah, I don't doubt that there was some again maybe some Neanderthals,
Mm,
survived because um yeah, as you say, the caves, were stretched for miles and miles, so there would have been enough air in those things for to survive. But I'd say most of the people walking around on the surface wouldn't have made it
mm.
if Everest got covered, then I don't think so. Um, but yeah, I understand how people might think that this book is like a book of stories and stuff. But again, I was more skeptical than anybody else. I was atheist for as long as I can remember, and but when I found, for instance, Noah's Ark was found back in 1980. Yeah, I think it was 1960. It was first found, um, and it was verified as the Ark in 1980. I don't know if you've heard the story of Ron Wyatt.
No, no, I haven't.
So the Americans sent an archaeological team to go and see this Ark, which is like a boat-shaped formation in the ground, about 70 miles from the nearest body of water in the foothills of Mount Ararat. Okay, and so they sent an archaeological team, and this American team said, "No, it's not the Ark. It's just a natural formation." So this amateur archaeologist, Ron Wyatt, went to the site with metal detectors and ground penetrating radar and all this kit. And yes, they found what looks like the superstructure of a boat, a very large boat, exactly the dimensions that are spoken of in the Old Testament. And he wanted to excavate the site so he could
Yeah, I bet he wasn't allowed to do that.
yeah, the Turkish government said no,
Mm.
no, no, and they were dragging their feet and everything. And right then and there was an earthquake right at that spot, and it excavated it for him. so, so he could find that indeed it was petrified wooden struts of a large boat. Okay, and the only thing that was wrong with the story is that the boat was supposed to have settled in the mountain, not in the foothills. Right. So he went up into the mountain and he found the keel of the boat still there. Yeah. And you can go to Google Earth right today, right, and find this boat-shaped object on Google Earth. Yeah. And what you'll find is there's like a stream where this boat is situated in the middle of this like stream of darker rock. Yeah, because the thing that's missed out is that Ararat was volcanic. So at some point in the last 3,000 to 4,000 years, right, it erupted, covered the ark in lava so quickly that the wood couldn't burn. Yeah. So and the weight of the ark and the lava snapped it off its keel, and it ran down the mountainside with the lava flow, right? And it got speared with this like a sharp outcrop of rock, and you can see it. You can see all of it. You can see the dark lava flow. You can see that the boat is dented in one side, and a rock is poking out through it. So you can see it got hung up on the rock. So yeah, it's again, it's the Most High preserving the ark so it can be found now when it's needed to be found. Yeah, because if it was found, 1,000 years ago, we wouldn't know about it now.
And this was Bob White, did you
That was
say?
Ron Wyatt.
Ron Wyatt. Sorry, Ron
Yeah.
Wyatt.
He also found the Red Sea crossing. So he went to the Gulf of Aqaba, which is, if you can see the Red Sea, it's like the main body, and it's got two little sort of limbs coming up. One is the Gulf of Suez and one's the Gulf of Aqaba. And he followed the story, and he followed the route that they took, and he ended up at this beach called Nuweiba al Muzyina, which is it's Arabic, and it means the waters of Moses opening. Right, Nuweiba al Muzyina, and this big beach was large enough to hold 3 million people, right? And it's 28 miles square, yeah. And right at that beach, there is a land bridge under the water, right? So that Gulf of Aqaba is a mile deep normally, but at that very spot, there's a land bridge that literally slopes maybe
Wow.
nearly just under 1,000 feet down and then back up again, right? That goes right across to Saudi Arabia. Okay. Um, and he found two pillars, one on either side of that land bridge, that were erected by Solomon. And one of them still had the inscription that's basically commemorating this is where we crossed. So
That's incredible.
yeah, so it literally brought this book alive. Um, Now, there are lots of other remnants of the story in the landscape over there. Now, I have to be honest and have to sort of accept the fact that, they could all be fabricated, you know, just to make that land look like it is the right place. But,
Yeah.
unless I find any other evidence, compelling evidence, I'm going to have to stick with that idea. Um,
Where are you with the wood used to build the art? Because a lot of people claim that it's what in America they call gopher wood, and it's only found in Florida.
well, again, the words. We've only got the words to go by.
Yeah, yeah,
I
so
could point
true.
out that tree out there that's an oak and go, yeah, I'm going to call that a gopher wood.
Yeah.
Let's call those, whenever we see those, we call them gopher woods. It's just a word. Yeah. So if that's very weak evidence as far as I'm concerned.
You don't buy that one.
Well, I don't know, but what I can say is it would be easy to just name
Mm.
something, that's something from the Bible, and then later on, 100, 200, 300 years later, say, oh well, it must be here because look, that tree's named the same thing.
This was apparently someone who had been involved in testing the wood, and that the wood could only be, that's the only place that they could find it. But I'll be honest, Dave, I've not looked into it. I've just heard it being bandied around that the wood, apparently the wood that was tested, can only, that's the only place they can find it. But of course, that's the only place they can find it today.
Yeah, I'm very suspicious of people who are talking absolutes. Um, that like when they talk about the Turin shroud. Well,
Mm,
that has to be JC under was under there, because it was dated with this and this scientist says that and that. But when you realize that the face that you associate with this JC character is actually Cesare Borgia,
yes,
because the Pope Nick
Pope's son, wasn't it?
his son. He wanted he
Mm.
wanted his son to be depicted as
He's like
JC.
the poster boy for him, wasn't he?
Yeah,
And he
so
was a bloodthirsty warmonger.
exactly. So if that face looks, on the shroud looks like Cesare Borgia, that can't be the guy, can it?
No, yeah, absolutely. Also I think, when you see the images that we've been forced to grow up with of Jesus and Moses and the saints and the disciples, and they're always Caucasian. And my first question would be, did they have incredible sunblock back then? What was it so much colder than it is now? I mean, how did these people not burn if they were built like me? I mean, you know, and this is where I throw Darwin's theory of evolution out the window because when my kids were growing up and we used to take them on holiday, I was the only person that had to sit under an umbrella. My wife and my kids, they're all right. They've got a head start, not like me. And the kids used to say, Dad, why don't you come out from under the umbrella? And they knew because I was going to burn. They said, what you could do is go to the shop up the road, buy some Union Jack shorts, put a vest on, and then swim in the pool with those on so you don't burn while you're swimming as well. You know, and like my wife used to say to me, do you know, when we go on holiday, if you're not bright red, you go the opposite extreme when it's calmed down and you look once again like someone's dropped you in a bottle of Tipex. And I think Darwin's theory of evolution doesn't work with me because I burn in the moment the sun comes out, I burn. I'm lactose intolerant. I've got hay fever. I'm wearing bloody glasses. My back always hurts. How have I evolved to meet my environment? And how on earth, if we follow the stories we've been given and the depictions of Christ and the disciples, how the bloody hell didn't they burn in the sun? When are people going to look at that alone as being fabricated?
Well, again, a fictional character can do anything, so that's one thing.
Yes, true.
But the people in the Old Testament, again depicted as white people, well, no, they weren't. They looked more like me,
Mm.
right? And
I
what,
think
what
everybody did. I think
well,
we're relatively new kids on the block, the Caucasians.
pretty much.
Benjamin Franklin said that too.
Yes, he did. 1755.
Mm.
That article he wrote, observations on the increase of mankind. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the biblical figures that you see as white people, they only came about during the Renaissance
Mm.
period, where
Mm.
all the artwork was destroyed or repainted to be white.
Whitewashed.
Um, the only place that the Renaissance didn't reach was Russia, right? And you can go and look for Russian icons, right? And you'll see the original paintings before they were whitewashed, and they're all of black people.
Mm.
So yeah, it was literally there's been a concerted effort to erase black people from history, and and promote white people as always being here. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I know there's a lot of people who find it deeply upsetting, but as you say, this white skin is a relatively
Mm.
new phenomena, and it literally came in through the fallen angels, I'm afraid,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
it literally says in the book of Enoch that Noah was born an albino, right? And his father, when he saw him, said, he can't be my son. He looks like the children of the fallen angels.
Mm.
Right? So we kind of know what they look like. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So
And I
yeah.
think that's what the World's Fairs were about and expositions. I talk about them a little bit, I've always called them whitewashing and brainwashing. That's what they were about. It was the British Empire trying to take credit for incredible buildings that were already there, and then introducing technology that's probably reversed engineered from a previous civilization. And then on display, they would have indigenous tribes and labeled as primitive and savage. And appears to be the part of this reset of doing this appears to have been done through the World's Fairs and Expositions
Mm,
across Earth, every major town and city, to try and convince and push that narrative.
absolutely. I don't know if you've seen. There are pictures of Cheapside in London. And again, it was from the 1800s something. Um, it looked like one of the World's Fairs. Yeah, and the only place that survives today is Mansion House. And in this picture from the 1800s, you see Mansion House, but then you see all this amazing architecture that looked like it came straight from a World's Fair. But you look at the same scene today, you see
Mm,
these old horrible blocks, boxy things that
brutalist.
brutalism, yeah,
Yeah.
that we're used to today. Um, so yeah, it actually it hurts me to think about that
Mm,
where we could be today if it wasn't for the influence of this cabal. And I think we all had, I get the feeling we all had a collective vision of the future. This amazing future that was I don't know, shining towers and wonderful everything. I don't know, flying cars, jetpacks, and this life of excitement and in sort of discovery and all that stuff. And I think, because I remember actually looking forward to the year 2000. I remember being like, 20 or something and looking thinking, wow, when the year 2000 gets, that's going to be a great time, flying around in our flying cars and whatever.
Yeah, the
Um,
Jetsons.
and then I think there was an event that shifted our timeline. I think that was 9/11. I think 9/11 shifted us away from that future that we all had, collectively into this dark future. I really feel like that. I think we were up until that moment we were heading for that amazing future, and then we just took a right turn. Yeah.
When do you think this will all be over?
Again, I think we're going to see it in our lifetime. I
I
think
think so too. Yeah.
I think we're on the verge of it. This system cannot go any longer. They've been propping it up since 2008. Yeah, so the system crashed in 2008. They've just printing like crazy, right, like never before, just to keep the system propped up so that they can crash it all at once. But the system is has already crashed. It's done for, and we're still going along, go pretending it's still everything's okay when we all know it's not okay. Um, this is the thing with the way we've been brainwashed.
Mm.
We can see the evil all around us, but we're just going on with blinkers, going, no, no, it's all okay, it's all good, it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't watch television, but every time I end up sort of around somebody's house or something on YouTube comes on. It's like mainstream TV. I'm shocked. I'm shocked at what's on there,
Mm.
right? And what's being drip fed into people's psyches. The evil is all around us, but everyone's pretending it's all good. Donald Trump, for instance, he's a criminal. Everybody knows it. He's a pedophile. Everybody knows it. You know, he's literally he's probably like Jeffrey Epstein's second in command for all we know,
Mm.
because he's been to the island so many times. You know, it's like we all know it, but all pretending it's all good.
I don't get the Trump thing. Why so many people follow him? I had this argument with someone this morning, and I said to them, they were going on about, well, at least Trump's doing some good. At least he's on our side. I said, you're joking. I said, if just do one thing for me. I can't show you the Epstein list. I can't show you what he gets up to when the doors are closed and the cameras are off. I can't tell you any of that stuff. But what you can do is you can research yourself and find that when he was on his arse, it was the Rothschilds that bailed him out. Now, that alone should be ringing alarm bells to anybody.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, but I want to get that the 20th Century Fox opening.
Yeah.
I want to get one of those done where it just says it's all of them. It's all of them.
Yeah,
Everyone who's in the public
absolutely.
eye, all of them. They're all
Mm,
in on it. They're all against you. Yeah, it's a big puppet show that
mm,
we're watching, and everyone's believing it. It's just it's when you wake up, you just get to that point where it's staggering. How do people fall for this?
yeah, yeah,
And we know that it will all end if enough of us just go, you know what, I'm not going along with this anymore. No,
mm,
you do what you want. We're going to do something over here.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, absolutely. That's
um,
what we need to
and I
do.
think that's what's starting to happen in Africa right now with the Ibrahim Traore. I mean, that's incredible. France is on his ass right now because they're no longer getting all this free stuff and all the gold and all that stuff from Africa. Right? It's their society is imploding now, and so's the UK. The now that the Africans are now saying, you know what, no, if you want to buy our cocoa, no, we're going to start making chocolate ourselves. And if you want that, you can buy it from us, or you're not taking our gold. If you want to
Mm,
buy it, well, here are the market rates.
mm.
It's quite amazing. And we're seeing the fight back, in real time. And I think we were saying off camera as well that it's not just what was it, Tanzania that's
Mm.
fighting back, but Nepal is fighting back. A lot of countries around the world are simultaneously all standing up to this system. But again,
Mm.
the revolution will not be televised.
I think for me, when I started talking about Tanzania, my brother immediately reminded me of Nepal. But I think Tanzania was pulling on my heartstrings a little bit because, it's where my wife first went to school.
Mm,
She had to come back here because, well, her father, he was quite successful out there. He had a security business.
mm,
Um, and One day they were kicked off their land, the bank accounts were frozen, and that was it. And people were being killed, and they literally fled, and they arrived in London, and for years actually. Whenever she was bad, whenever she was naughty, she ended up living in a tower block here called World's End in Chelsea.
mm,
And whenever she did something naughty, her mum would say to her, "They haven't given you citizenship yet. If you do that again, they're going to send you back." And she worried about that until literally into her mid-teens. She always thought she did something wrong, she'd be deported and sent back there because her earliest memories are actually having a pet goat. And she used to ride the goat and being
mm,
taken to school by someone I think she called a yaya, and talking about it really fondly. And her parents, um, her grandparents, sorry, on her dad's side, were from Madagascar, and they had these fascinating stories. Really cultured people, but her last memories of it are of everything being taken away and people being killed. And
mm.
and so it sort of pulled on my heartstrings, and because she's got family that are still out there, and friends of friends that are still out there. So I think that one hit a bit harder to home. So that's why I was sort of more focused on that. But that one alone's a bit of a strange one. I mean, it looks like the UN have been arming people.
Yeah, well, what's going on in Africa really is that the West have been literally throwing lots of arms into
Mm,
that country and saying, okay, you fight these guys.
mm,
Here's enough weapons to fight them, and going to the other side and go, here's some weapons to fight these guys because they've got weapons here. So they've made sure everyone's fighting each other so they can keep
mm,
running away with all the resources.
mm.
Um, Interestingly, we're going to have to ask your wife for me about everything she knows about this Yaya idea because, and let me know when you find out because that's a very interesting name. It's actually where, if you follow the story, it's where you get the name Negro from.
Oh,
Yaya is the
really?
name of a very powerful family. Um, so yeah, if you let me know what she
Yeah,
says
I
about that,
will, because it
that'd
was
be
the
interesting.
person who literally raised her, took her to school, and it was like literally because her mum was at work all the time. Her mum worked for her dad. Um, that was the person who raised her. And
Right.
that was her
Well,
biggest bond. That was her closest bond. That was sort of more her mother than her mother was.
what I found was that Adolf Hitler had a book written or commissioned to find out who were the real Israelites because he knew that the Jewish people weren't the Israelites. So he wanted to find out, well, who are? So in this book, and I've got it on PDF. In this book, he traced one family from the line of David, right, who was exiled to Europe essentially, um, and there was a patriarch called, okay, it's spelt Don Jashia, yeah, but J's are actually a y sound,
Yeah.
right? Because J didn't really exist. So, and the ch, right, is a ch sound. right? So Jashia is Yahya, or anglicized to Yahya. Yeah. So
Wow.
this Don Yahya, right? He took on the name Negro, because he was a famous man. He's known as what's known as an exilarch, royalty in exile. Yeah, and he was the head of the exiled people, right? Because he was of the line of King David, right? And and so you got the Spanish Inquisition that
Hmm.
forced them to leave, and then you got the Portuguese Inquisition that forced them to leave, and those people ended up in West Africa. Okay, and you can follow from the slave voyages database. Yeah, you can actually find in that list Yaya, loads of them Yayas. Yeah, so I was really interested to hear that name.
I'll find out for you because her mum will know a lot more because Frinny was just a kid when she came over here. She was still primary school age. But that would be fascinating if that was the person that literally raised her was a descendant from such an incredible bloodline.
Well, if you get that, well, taking this offline a bit, but yeah, I'll send you my research, and I'll send you the book, and it shows you literally the whole line from King David to these the Yayas.
That's incredible.
And
It's
then
fun.
in the Slave Voyages database, it's literally Yayas from West Africa that got taken to the Americas.
It's the things that we find out later on in life, unfortunately, sometimes a lot later on in life, that we wished we had have known. Then the questions you would ask, if you could go back and I often think this with my grandparents. I want, if I could go back and just as an example, if I could ask my grandparents, when you were at school, were you taught we were on a spinning ball
Hmm.
or was it flat? Because most people their generation were told it was flat. And if I could go back and visit places with the eyes I have now that I've been to all over the world, I'd see everything in such a different light.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, it's not until I think education is to an extent wasted on the young. I think we enjoy it more when it's not forced upon us.
I think what's forced upon us is bullshit.
Yes, that's probably why it doesn't resonate.
Exactly.
Mm,
When you're at school, nothing, you don't remember any of it because it's bullshit. Your subconscious knows that's not true. Yeah.
mm,
But then when you go leave school and you're finding out for yourself, that's when you start to remember it all because it's the truth. We know the truth when we hear it. Yeah.
mm.
So yeah, an education. Well, none of us got an education.
No, we didn't. We were given the wrong information, but information that would be useful for us to go and work for one of their friends.
Yep.
Terence Howard said a while back that multiplication is where it begins to go wrong. If multiply means to increase, then one multiplied by one can't be one. Otherwise, it's not been multiplied, and it gets worse from that point onwards. I think he's right. I think it's all wrong. The maths we're taught's wrong. The history we know is wrong, and probably the geography as well.
Well, yeah, he said something that I don't know, made me laugh out loud when I heard it. But obviously the banks are using this trick on us all the time. You know, if I asked you what's £1 times £1?
Yeah. Now I'm going to say one.
One, right? So a pound is 100 pennies, isn't it? So what's 100 pennies times 100 pennies?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so obviously they can trick us with just
Yeah.
by multiplying things by pennies rather than pounds. You
Yeah.
know,
They've done a brilliant job of it. You've got to hand it to them. As much as I despise them, what a number that they've pulled off here. Because
well,
they've infiltrated every single area, haven't they?
yeah.
And
Well,
completely.
I think one of the master strokes is education
Mm,
because none of us needed to be educated. None of us need to be taught anything. Yeah. the whole point is you've got access to every bit of information throughout the whole of time and space. It's yours. Children have that, right? And we educate them out of it, right?
Yeah.
They literally, if you ask them, so you ask a child a deep question, they'll confidently just start talking to you about, well, you know, what how how the world works or whatever. They'll tell you, yeah. But you say, oh, you don't know. Here's what really happened, and they go, oh, okay, you know. And
Yeah.
so it was a masterstroke to introduce this idea of schooling, yeah, to literally empty people's minds of the truth and refill
Mm,
it with bullshit, essentially.
yeah. Yeah. They certainly tried, haven't they?
Yeah, the evidence that I've got for this idea is something that came about recently. I don't know if you come across the telepathy tapes.
No, no, I haven't.
The telepathy tapes are it's a podcast. You can go and find it, and it's about non-verbal autistic children. So,
Right.
so these children are regarded by society as vegetables, right? They can't be taught, they can't communicate. Obviously, when you talk to them, they can't understand you, so they're vegetables. Now that was the case until somebody decided, well, obviously they can't speak, they haven't got the fine motor skills to speak. But if I show them a board with letters on it, they can point out and make words. And sure enough, they could. And when they did, they realized these children could speak multiple languages, right? And they knew advanced information about, physics, maths, geology,
Really.
you name it. They knew all this stuff because they have direct access to it.
I'm
Um,
making so many notes while you're talking, Dave. You give me so much homework to do. And these are the telepathy files or tapes.
telepathy tapes. And I think you go to telepathytapes.com and
Right.
or even on Spotify or something like that and find the podcast. Um, and it's amazing. These children who obviously can't communicate with the outside world, they meet at this place in their minds. They call the hill. And literally children from all over the world meet in this place, non-physical place. And they communicate with each other. And while I was researching, I found this Mexican scientist called Jacobo Grinberg, and he found that when some of these brain hemispheres are in sync with each other, now you have access to these what we would call supernatural powers, yeah, these abilities, right? Um, but normally our brains are just way out of sync.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you spend time with somebody whose brains are totally in sync, they start to bring you up into synchronization at the cost of a little of theirs. They go slightly out of sync, but they bring you up to their level. Okay. And that turned out to be true because you'll find in one of the later podcasts in the telepathy tapes, one of the researchers that was spending a long time with these autistic children ended up going to the hill. So he was able to literally find himself at this hill with all these children and was able to communicate with them. And then later on, when he met them, this one child basically repeated back his mother's maiden name, which he told
Oh,
him
wow.
on the hill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. In a past life, I was a tattoo artist for years, and I used to write for a magazine and do bits and pieces. And one day I tattooed um, a Spanish phrase on this person's forearm, and I didn't know what it meant. They brought it in, showed me it, and I did it. And while I'm doing it, I said, "What does this mean?" And they said, "Well, it's children of God." I said, what's children of God mean to you?" They said, "Oh, in Spain, a child born with autism is referred to as one of the children of God."
Mm.
and I have Asperger's, so that for me, it just really put a smile on my face, and for the first time, I didn't see it as a negative, and actually as more as a positive, and that, and and um, and since then, I've thought, I wonder if when you have a high level of autism, whether or not actually you have a superpower, and perhaps telepathy is exactly what that superpower is.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think it's more than that. Right? I think, first of all, we've all got these abilities. We come with all these abilities intact, but we're educated out of it. We've got our you know, our sort of racial memory or whatever, generational memory that says, no, you haven't got them. No, you haven't got them. No, you haven't got them. Yeah. So our parents don't know they've got telepathy. Our
Mm,
grandparents didn't know, and so on and so on. Yeah. And that's within us. We've got that deep knowing that no, that's not true. Okay. But we have all these abilities in us that we've never ever used or exercised. But sometimes we use it without knowing it, and we go, "Oh,
mm,
what a coincidence!"
yeah,
Well, that was lucky, wasn't it?
yeah.
Um, so, um, so I visualize this as dimensions. Okay, so this is my latest talk that um, we live in the third dimension, right? And the left hand hemisphere of our brain is what. Sorry, bloody thing. So the left hand hemisphere of our brains is what roots us in the third dimension. Yeah, our senses go to that side of our brain, and it says what this present moment feels like, smells like, tastes like, whatever. The right brain is connected to the fourth dimension, right, where access to everything in the whole of time and space happens to be. Yeah. So whenever you imagine something, you're in the fourth dimension. Right. Um, Whenever you're in that non-physical space, that non-local space, that's the fourth dimension. Autistic children, I think, have problems with their left brain, so they can't. They're not fixed in this dimension like we feel we are, right? Um, in one of the telepathy tapes, it actually says that one of the children say the reason that they keep hitting their heads on something and they keep hitting themselves is because they don't know they've got a body, and
Right.
they have to remind themselves that this is my body. Yeah. Um, so because they don't have that sense of being here in this dimension like we do. And so that's why
Yeah.
they can't relate to people very easily, because right, but they are in the fourth dimension. So they've got access to the whole, they've got access to all these abilities, skills, everything. So that's why the savants, who tend to be the ones who are verbal, so they've got a little bit going on in the left hand side of the brain, but they can also access all this stuff. So, there's Stephen Wiltshire, who can just look out of an aeroplane at New York City, go home, and then draw exactly what he saw.
Mm,
Yeah. Or a child who can listen to Rachmaninoff and then just play it without,
mm,
yeah, because they've got access to these abilities. The non-verbal ones just can't communicate, or
mm,
can't um, physically or actively operate in this dimension very easily. Right. So, but we've all got that access, and there's a school in Essex um, where they teach children how to see without their eyes. They got these mind folds on, these really good blindfolds, and so they can read books, they can play football, they can do all sorts of things without losing their eyes. And there's these schools all over the world now. So again, part of this awakening, I think, or maybe the crux of this awakening is remembering that we have all these abilities,
mm.
remembering that we're more than we think we are.
I love that. I think that's a nice place to end this. I've just realised how long we've been talking for. Where obviously you're on YouTube, you're everywhere, but where is the best place for people to if there is somebody out there who doesn't know where to find allegedly Dave, where would they go?
Allegedlydave.com.
That's what a brilliant bloody answer. And I guess from there you've got links to social medias.
Yeah, you'll be able to find me. I've got even
Yeah,
got my phone number on there as well. So
bloody
now
hell.
that I've found my phone again, yeah,
Well, I'm glad you did.
yeah. But yeah, I my website is in a very sorry state at the moment. But when I get some time, I'll actually rebuild it. But yeah, you'll be able to find me.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate you giving up Sunday afternoon. I mean, this will go out next week, but right now it's Sunday afternoon. I appreciate you giving up your time, especially today, to talk
You're
to me.
absolutely welcome.
But thank you, and we'll have to do this again.
Okie dokie. All right.
Take care,
Cheers.
and I'll say goodbye properly in a moment. But bye for now, Dave. Thank you.
All right. Take care.